And on today's video, we're going to replace the heater core in my 1966 Mustang. You probably saw on the thumbnail that I had a little bit of an accident inside the car. In fact, I was driving it the other day and I could smell that sweet smell that coolant has. And the first thing I started doing is looking around, and I even pulled over and looked underneath the hood, make sure it wasn't leaking anything. And when I got back in the car, that's when I noticed it was dripping onto the carpet there inside the passenger footwell. So let's get that thing swapped out. Let's get started. The first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to drain some of the coolant down here from the bottom of the radiator and take some of the coolant level off the motor, so when we swap out that heater core, we're not pouring coolant everywhere. So the heater core that I purchased is a little bit different than what's in the car, and you notice it's the length of these tubes, these heater core tubes. I chose to buy these longer ones because these will stick out through the firewall, and then the heater tubes will just connect on the outside of the firewall. You won't have to fish them through and mess with the connections. And really that's just for future, if you ever need to service this again, you don't have to get back behind the heater core and take those clamps off and separate the tube in that part. So that was the reason for this. Now we'll see if it works or not. It sounded like a good idea. And then the other part are these foam spacer pieces that are caps that go on the end here, and they'll secure this heater core inside the heater box of underneath the dash there. So I probably could reuse the ones that are there, but I mean, they're cheap, it's $10, so I just bought a new set, and then we'll slap those on here and put it in the car. So what we're trying to get to back here are these two hoses to this heater core box, and actually, yeah, you can see it's still leaking out of there a little bit. So I need to get those two hose clamps off, which I can reach back there and do, but then I need to take the front of this box off to get the heater core out. We can pull these off right now because that has to come off. And then we can go into the glove box here, and we're going to take off, there's some screws in here, and we're this is just a cardboard box really that actually will fold up. So we're going to take this off, and then we can reach, there's clips underneath here, and these clips just pop off, and there's some along the top of this box, and the whole front of this box should just come off, and then we can get to the heater core that's in there. Okay, now that this is loose, this should just pop out now. Now that it's free. I'm sure there's a way to get this out, but I'm not finding it. So now we can see the top of the box in there. There's a couple of clips on the top of the box we need to get to. We also have to take these cables off for the heater controls. It's a good idea to mark these with maybe some masking tape and just write on them maybe the front, or if you know which one it goes to over there in the controls, that you can mark it so that we put the right cable back on the right spot. We also take this screw out right here, but you can get to it from underneath the dash with a socket wrench. And then once we pop these clips off, we can pop this whole box cover forward, and we can get to the heater core. There's two clips on the side of the box. You probably can't see them in there, but we need to get those off as well. I was hoping we could get this front box out, cover the box off without taking out the whole assembly, but as I start to pull on it, move it, I'm hearing the fiberglass of this starting to crack a little bit, and it's just not worth damaging this box. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the engine side and undo there's 4 bolts that hold the back of this housing to the firewall. We'll pull that off, and then we can be able to pull this whole assembly out. So there's 4 nuts on here, on the back side here, and we'll just take them off. It's a 7/16. Careful, careful. Whew. Okay, the next part is the wiring. You're gonna have to, if you've got the wire, if this motor is wired in, you have to cut it. If you've got some terminals that you can unplug, you need to do that part. I don't know what I got going on here, but I guess we can unplug that one, but I'll have to cut this one. And see how that system kind of moved forward? Now we need to take the hoses off up in front so the hoses can feed through and I can reach back and get those clamps on the hoses. All right, now that we broke that free up front, we can go ahead and finish pulling this out through here. And we're gonna have to get to those cable, or the hose clamps here real soon. Now that I can reach all this stuff. Yeah, I should be able to get to those hose clamps now. And I know you can't see it, but that's the second one. So now I gotta pry these hoses off the old heater core. Wow. Guess I had some stuff clogged up in there. Holy moly. Now in the process of doing this, I'm destroying this heater hose, and that's okay. I probably should get some new heater hose anyways while we're doing this project. All right, one. Oh man, that was on there pretty good. Okay, so now this thing is free. So let's get it out of here. Oh, coolant, oh, coolant. There is quite a bit of, I don't know, maybe 50 years worth of bugs and whatnot collected in here. Dump all that out. Yeah, the foam that goes on here, it really needs to be replaced. See what we're gonna do here. For the heater, the rest of the heater core, so we can take this part off because this part still works pretty good. I need to clean it out. Can address that here, but this is what we're gonna be replacing, and we're gonna be putting in this new unit here. Notice how much longer the coolant tubes are here. This is meant to stick through the firewall, and then I don't know if this was the best design, at least installation to make it easier, because I can hook up the end of the hoses outside of the firewall instead of underneath the dash. So we'll see how that goes. Also, these foam pieces, I don't know how that's going to fit. I mean, I can see how that would fit on here given their size. Yeah, that fits, but I think I wasted my money. Yeah, that's not going to fit at all. Okay, well, there goes that. And then same thing with this side. Yeah, this isn't going to fit. All right, well, there goes 10 bucks. Okay, so don't buy those if you're going to put in an aftermarket heater core like that. But this guy still got coolant in there, so I can't tip it over. But we're just going to replace that. So we're going to clean out this old heater box, kind of give it just a little bit of new life, and then we should be able to assemble this back together. We can go ahead and start putting in the new heater core. Just feeds right in there. This piece fits inside here. I'm sure there's an easier way of doing this, and I just don't know what it is. Okay, there. Now that that's together, we can put those clamps back on, or clips, and they just pop on. Pretty simple. Just like that, and we just go around the edges of everything and put all that together. Now we got all those clips back on. I think it's time to go ahead and put this back in the car. I'm gonna have to get some new heater hose, I think, because I cut that other stuff up and it's starting to get a little dated, so let's get some new hose for that. But let's put this in the car and make sure that it all bolts up first. Just don't forget to put this ring back on there. Before you put this in, make sure you've got the cables out of the way and this thing's out of the way, so you can put those two tubes through the firewall, and then the motor has to fit through that part of the firewall. Alright, now that we kind of got that kind of sort of in place, I think from here we got to go up front and make sure that everything is coming through the other side. Alright, so far so good. So we can just kind of pull this up here in place, and I'm going to put those nuts back on there that we took off earlier, and that will help hold everything, at least for now, until we get everything secured in place. I don't know how I got this thing out without destroying it. Hopefully I can get it back in here without destroying it. All right, now that we got a new couple of feet of heater hose, let's get it cut and put in the car. All right, so if we feed this through here, we can go ahead and start hooking up the hoses on the fittings, and then I'll just cut it to length down here on that end. Don't forget to put your hose clamp on first. There's no reason to run the hose all the way down to the bottom of the tube. Just, you know, just enough to just tuck it inside the firewall should be sufficient. And don't forget to tighten your hose clamps. We want to route this thing around the valve cover, and in this valley in here between the manifold and the valve cover, we don't want it to bind on anything. We're going to just come right here to this fitting. So I think we can mark it here and then cut it. All right, one down. Now, the previous owner had, I think they had these connected wrong, and I believe the bottom tube goes to the manifold and the top tube goes down to the water pump. I saw a diagram, at least it was drawn out that way. If I got that wrong, I apologize, guys, but I think that's how it's supposed to go. New hose is on, the clamps are tight. We're good on the inside, or at least on this end. So let's put the coolant back in. All right, now we'll start it, and it will circle the coolant, and it should just pull this level down. The coolant right now is sitting right about here, but I know we can fit all the coolant in there because I pulled it all out. So let's start the engine and let this cycle for a second. Just when you think you know what you're doing with draining the coolant, you make a bigger mess. Oh, that's fantastic. All right, coolant everywhere. I think I found part of the problem. This thermostat that I put in here, it's common with these cars to drill, this is really on there, to drill a 1/16 of an inch hole in the top of the radiator to let air out. And I think what I had going on here is that without that hole, the bubbles, the little air that was trapped in the car couldn't get out, and it was just compressing and not allowing this thermostat to open. Let's drill that hole and put that in here. It's I got a new gasket, so we'll put that in, put this back in the car. All right, we got the old gasket scraped off of there and got the surface cleaned up. Took an 1/8 inch drill bit and drilled a hole in the top of this thermostat, and then just used some 3M spray to spray the surface of this thermostat housing and then the one side of this gasket, and then allows that, so see, now this won't fall when you go to put it back in the car. And then we're also going to put just a dab of this stuff just right around the edge in here, right before we put it on the car, so that it creates just a nice good seal. We don't have any leaking on the bottom side of the thermostat housing, which some of you guys are probably familiar that this edge down here can leak sometimes. So let's do that part. Okay, much better. So I didn't properly bleed the system for air before when I did these heater hoses, and again, having that hole in the thermostat, I had trapped some air back behind there, and when I would turn the car off, it would just pour out of the top of this radiator, and I did that twice before I realized what I was doing. Anyways, now that we got that fixed, yeah, just there's, see the steam. This is from all of the coolant that was all over the radiator. It's still getting cooked off. Okay, so the heater core's in. I thought I could take that front cover of the heater core off without having to pull the whole unit out. Wasn't able to do that. I've seen it in other videos, guys able to do that. I thought I could do it. Maybe I was doing it wrong. But went ahead and pulled the whole system out, and I'm glad I did because I was able to clean that out. It does need to be, I don't want to say rebuilt, but it needs to be freshened up. And the motor, the blower motor still works. The doors, you know, the little doors inside there still work. It's just, it could probably use a rebuild. Got the hoses on. Having the extender tubes for the heater core coming through the firewall did make it easier to hook these heater hoses on in here instead of underneath the dash. I don't know if there's any performance gain or deficit for having it that way, but it sure did make it easier for the install. And then new heater hoses, just because the other ones were a little brittle, cooked a little bit. And then other than that, just make sure that you get all the air out of the system before you put the coolant back in and fire it back up, or you'll have a mess twice. All right, that should do it. Thanks for sticking with me. We'll see you in the next one.